Hey, it's Aiden, and what if I told you there was a tool that allowed you to help you create better song ideas, progress with those song ideas by reminding you of important production tasks, identify how you can improve specific areas of your track so you can bring it up to a professional standard, and a tool that will help you look back on your progress as a producer and see how far you've come. Now, what if I told you it wasn't a plugin, wasn't a sample pack, it wasn't a new synth, but it's actually just your note-taking app on your phone or your computer? Today, I'm going to be showing you the power of what I call project notes. This video is actually an excerpt from my 12-week coaching program, the Producer Launchpad. If you're interested in me helping you create professional quality music in any genre with one-on-one and group coaching, sign up for the waiting list below. We're launching in January. That in mind, let's hop into the video. So we're going to talk about project notes, which are actually probably one of my favorite things in this entire week of content to cover, because I think they're the most underrated thing that music producers can use. I think it's not talked about enough. I think there's no videos online about it. And I think, this has been something that has absolutely been a crucial part of my workflow and in me improving my music, right? And basically all it is, and this is a screenshot of an old project note that I had in my old note-taking system. It's basically just a list of tasks that you will do for any given project you're working on. Now, you might think, okay, Aiden, that's great, a to-do list, but when I'm making music, why wouldn't I just do the thing that I can think of? If I have to write it down, why wouldn't I just open up Ableton or open up FL or open up Logic and just do it? Well, here's the problem. Let's say you're working on a bass line and you're really in the groove, you're in that flow state we talked about, everything's going really well. And suddenly, halfway through the process, the bass line's still halfway there, but not quite. You have this idea for the build-up, a riser type effect that you want to quickly design and chuck in the build-up leading up to the drop with the bass line you're currently working on. What do? Do you finish the bass line and risk forgetting the idea, and then you're like, I don't know what I was going to do? Or do you interrupt your flow and then go work on the effect, and then by the time you do that, you forget what you were doing with the bass line? It can be really confusing to know what to prioritize. This is where project notes are so helpful, because you can just make a quick note, literally open up your I got a project note here, a really simple one in just Apple Notes, write down, see, add rhythmic riser with pitch automation to the builder. And then you've got it there for later. It means you don't have to do it right now. It means you can focus on what is important right in front of you and then come back to it when it's convenient. And as you can see here, I wrote it down in a lot of detail so as to capture exactly what I want to do. I want to add a rhythmic riser with pitch automation to the build-up. Very specific, right? And so that kind of answers the question, why wouldn't I just do it? Because it's not always practical, right? So that's just one of the many ways as well that you can actually use project notes. You can do it in a number of different ways though. For example, you can do a track audit where you go through and listen to your current project with your notes open like this and just write things as you're listening that come into your brain, right? For example, you might notice the kick needs tweaking, or you might need to add more effects in the build, or maybe the crash cymbal needs replacing in the drop. Things that you notice that you're like, this is what I'm hearing as more of a listener as opposed to a producer, and then you can get back into production mode and do those things. It's great for journaling because then you'll have a collection of project notes that you can go back to and identify common problems. This is really helpful with the workflow map as well, because if you are struggling to identify where you kind of commonly get held up or stuck, having project notes to reference can be helpful to identify common themes. Really cool. A third one is a checklist you can add to your project notes, which can actually be something that you just copy paste into each project note, have it in a separate note, and then just literally paste it in here. I have one in my other system, so it's not going to show up here, but you can basically have like a mixdown checklist that, or even checklists you download online. I know we at EDMProd offer a few different ones, right? So you can use it for common production tasks and then just kind of tick them off one by one. Really cool. You can use it for ideas when you're out of the studio. If you're ever walking around and you're like, oh, I'm going to do that in the breakdown of my track. Because often that's when the ideas actually come to you, right? So it's great when you're out and about, you can just jot down a note and keep going with your day. And then when you're in the studio, implement it. Another really cool idea is you can kind of create like a creative synopsis, which is basically just like a a few sentences, like a paragraph on like what the project is, you know, maybe what kind of vibe you want it to be. Maybe you're encapsulating some emotion into what you're doing. So you can kind of write like a little, this song is about happiness that I experience, if I can spell words right, with my friends, feelings to capture. You know, you could write like holiday, you could write like sunshine, you know, you could write special moments. I don't know, just whatever words or sentences or whatever you can do to describe the track. This is a really cool way to kind of get that bigger picture view of things. It's optional. You don't have to do this, but it can be helpful. And there's obviously a number of different other ways and ideas you're probably already thinking as to how to use project notes beyond what I'm suggesting here. So there's a lot more you can do. Now, practically to set it up, there's a few different ways I mentioned. I like to use just Apple Notes. I think it's the simplest. I've used tools like Notion, Evernote, ClickUp in the past. They're all great. Like you saw a few slides back, I used to use Notion. This is Notion. It's great for, it's a little bit more complex, but still quite simple. You can use pen and paper with like a notebook. For example, you can go down to the store, buy a $5 notebook and a pen, and then just have that as your project's notebook, right? You know, have a dedicated thing. It can be really cool to use pen and paper sometimes, get out of the digital environment. You can use a whiteboard. There's a whole host of ways you can set it up. I recommend, you know, in terms of the actual layout, all you have to do is put the name of the project. And, you know, this kind of is cool because it forces you to name the project early, which I'm a huge fan of. You can write dash project notes. I like to do that. And then just use some sort of checklist or even just bullet points if you need to, whatever your software supports or however you like to do it. You know, like this, however you like to do it, just a list of things. If you're doing the creative synopsis thing, do that at the top. And then if you have like a checklist, do it at the bottom so you can like have all of the items that you kind of regularly tick off. Faders, EQ. Maybe if we're doing like a mixing checklist, it might look something like this, you know, like that, right? Maybe you have like a quick checklist just to run through. Have I done the faders? Have I done the EQ? Have I done the dynamics? Have I done the stereo image? And I put that at the bottom below the kind of more general tasks. That's how I would structure it, right? So it's really simple. I don't like complex setups. This is a messy system, which is actually what we're about to cover in the next lesson. To recap, project notes will help you capture ideas to implement in a given project. You can set it up with just your preferred medium, notes, Evernote, whiteboard, pen and paper, whatever you want. And it's just a list of tasks at the end of the day. That's really it. It's super simple and super helpful to use in the studio. Now, this is just a taster of what we get into inside my 12-week Producer Launchpad coaching program. So if you're feeling stuck, whether you're a beginner or you've been producing a while and you need someone to be alongside you to help you make the music you want to be making, bring it up to a professional standard, and even start to think about putting it out into the world, I'm your guy and I would love to help you with that. So join the waiting list below, get notified as soon as enrollment is available, and we can go from there. But apart from that, guys, I hope you enjoyed. Until next time, happy producing.